socialist plan that was going to walk us off an economic cliff like Kamala Harris. You guys did not have a plan. You had criticism. That's all you had.
Gamble with high stakes. And as I've said several times, I don't know if it will work. What definitely won't work is continuing to say half of Americans are racist bigots. Democrats are fuming over President Trump's great power, but they're a big part of the reason that he has it again. To debate all this and more, I'm joined by Chuck Todd, host of the Chuck Toddcast, Jamal Bowman, the former Democrat congressman for New York, Matt Schlapp, the chairman of CPAC, and Lindy Lee, the former fundraiser for the Democratic National Committee. Well, welcome to all of you. Chuck Todd, welcome to Uncensored, making your debut. And congratulations on breaking out into this brave new world, which I think you'll find very exciting.
And be gentle.
Yeah. Of course. It's great to see you, Chuck. Look, you've been in Washington a long time. You've seen it all before. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of us have ever seen anything quite like what is happening here. I've got to be honest, I just don't know if it could work. I mean, I'm keeping an open mind, as I do with all things Trump, that if you get away from the often incendiary rhetoric and the kind of brutal methodology, is there a method to the madness? I'm looking at the markets this morning. You've got a full-blown trade war now between the United States and China, but the market's gone up on this news, which suggests to me that maybe even on Wall Street, they're thinking, well, maybe it is time we had a gloves-off war over trade.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if it's going to work either. History says it's unlikely to work, and I think the real challenge for President Trump is not.
No, because we haven't really tried nothing like this in history. Even if you look at the tariffs we did back in the 30s, like there were nothing like this.
It's not what he's trying to do. What he's trying to do is popular, right? Bring back manufacturing, bring back more, Americans should make more things in America. That is not that is a unifying idea. But the way he's gone about it, I think has both been politically damaging to himself, and then obviously it could be catastrophic to the economy. It's not to me dissimilar to what happened to President Biden and the Afghanistan withdrawal. The idea of getting out of Afghanistan, that was universally popular, right? That had 60, 70%. Yes, get out. How he got out became a test of his competency or frankly incompetency of his administration. And when you look at how President Trump has done this, there's a good op-ed in the New York Times today, Owen Cass, who's a defender of the larger idea of what President Trump is doing, but simply seems to be sort of at his wit's end at sort of how he's trying to do it. Politically, he should have done his tax cut first and sort of essentially gradually increased and gradually talked about how he was going to do his tariffs. You do a little bit at a time, 3 months at a time, see who comes to the table. You give business a chance to absorb
the tax cuts got to kind of come after. And I'm going to tell you why. We got to get the businesses to come over here first, and then we can give them the tax cuts. Now, you know what I respect about this man is that he actually has a plan. I'm going to be real with you. I actually respect it because this is the only guy who just has not had just straight criticism of Trump and just said, no. First, we should have hit him with the tax cuts. Then if the tax cuts didn't bring him in, then we tariff him. Then we hit them with the tariff. But I would tell him like, yo, the tax cuts wouldn't have been enough to bring these guys in because one, how we'd have to agree how low could bring the tax cuts. The Democrats are going to pull tooth and nail for that. Like we try to be competitive with our corporate tax. These Democrats are going to cry. They're going to cry about, oh, you guys are letting off the rich and all this good stuff, even though other countries have low corporate tax and y'all don't say that shit to them. But I digress.
The new rules. And there is sort of, you can create some certainty in the business community. The way
I would say like this, we can't compete through corporate tax or through our taxes because some of these other countries have way lower taxes than us. But what we can compete with is through tariffs, which pretty much cuts them off from our consumer market. Us having low taxes, they still have the benefit of getting into our market. We're trying to let them know that, yo, we understand that you benefit off buying into our market and we're willing to cut that off. Us lowering our taxes was not going to honestly help them understand that.
Hey, he's done it. I think he's jeopardized his political support in Congress, even among his fellow Republicans, and he's jeopardized the competency that I think many business leaders assumed he had with the economy. They looked at Trump 1 and thought, hey, that wasn't so bad. Now, I would look at it and say, well, he's got an entirely different slate of advisors surrounding him this time than he had in 1.0. You know, Mike Pence, Reince Priebus, those guys were free marketers. They were free traders. There were a lot of free traders in his administration in Trump 1.0. Those folks don't exist in Trump 2.0. So I do think he's put himself and has put his party in massive political jeopardy by how he's gone about it. It's not the idea, it's how he's executed it.
Well, Matt Schlapp, that's a really interesting point Chuck makes, because we played a CNN clip earlier, them talking about a poll which showed that the majority of Americans are comfortable with the level of power that Donald Trump has, which might be a surprise to many people on the left, for example, who think he's completely out of control and he's a king and so on. So it's clear that the American people at the moment believe actually it's okay that he has this amount of power. But how he's utilizing it is clearly causing him a lot of personal poll rating damage, because another CNN poll I saw this morning showed that over the tariff issue, his support is definitely plummeting. And it is a massive roll of the dice. Whatever side you're on, whichever way you look at this, nobody has ever tried to launch a global trade war. He would dispute the word war, but I think most people would say that's what we're now in. A global trade war between the United States and everybody else, with China in particular responding against fire with fire. So the two things can be right. People might be comfortable that the president has this power to do this, but the way he's executing this is eating up his political capital. And again, I don't know if it's going to work. If it does, then he'll turn out to be a genius who played the ultimate blunt weapon, and it worked. If it doesn't work, conversely, he could be in serious political trouble, and the Republicans heading into the midterms might get one hell of a beating there and then another big beating in the next election. In other words, the stakes are incredibly high here.
The stakes are high, but it must be done. That's the thing. It must be done. And that's kind of the effed up part, is that y'all pretty much telling that Donald Trump should have just honestly let the American people get sold out off of what? Off what? Oh, his political power? Isn't that what we got tired of? People too afraid to take action because they want to hold on to power. Isn't that what we were going against? Isn't that what you liberals hate? But Donald Trump does exactly what y'all liberals say y'all want, and he's a villain now. But look what Biden did. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody came in with these good initiatives to help out Americans, but it all got tucked away. They didn't do nothing. So it is kind of crazy how, like, low-key put his entire campaign, put his entire stock on the line for this, which no other president would really do. I mean, Bush had the opportunity to do it with Israel with the whole two-state solution, and they threatened his whole second term, and he capitulated. You kind of see how they can get people to fall back just off, oh, you may lose power, and the fact that it didn't bother Trump is honestly admirable.
Or they'll help you set them up in a tax advantage goal and straight in unspell sort of description. Now on with the show.
Yeah, so that's been the theme of my last decade, Pierce, has been, how can you be supporting Trump? You're going to get destroyed in the midterms. How can you support Trump? He's going to lose the American people. How can you support Trump? He's going to be the least popular president in our history. And what's turned out to be over the course of the last 8 years is he's actually turned into to be one of the most consequential presidents in our history. And there's a couple things that you have to realize, which is this trade war is going on already. He's just decided to engage it. So there was this acceptance by Democrats and Republicans, free traders, as Chuck just described them. I would quibble with that, but let's just say this. We were okay with America paying for everything. We were okay with American companies paying high tariffs and us having relatively low tariffs because we were so big and we were so successful and we dominated the economy and we dominated the globe. And then over time, the American middle class got hollowed out and the American people soured on this idea of globalism, and they soured on this idea that there was an upside to getting cheap T-shirts and cheap underwear when you couldn't work at the plant anymore. You couldn't find a job. And what you were told by a lot of people is that's okay. You'll get retrained and you'll become a computer technician. And that hasn't worked out so great for everyone. The other war that we've woken up to is the idea that,
I mean, yeah, we kind of just told everybody to, oh yeah, you know, I know you like your job at the factory and working with your hands, but you know, screw all that. We're gonna go now. You gotta go back to school and become a computer technician and work with computer hardware, computer parts. It's like, what? Like that didn't even rationally sound sense. You're basically telling me that you expected this car manufacturer guy to go from putting cars together to what? Putting the wiring into cars? Like, did y'all hear yourselves? And then why wasn't there like mass training workshops for this to retrain these people? Like, y'all want to subsidize anything, subsidize the training of American workers.
we're in a global war with China, whether we want to accept that or not. They are all over this globe. They have become the globe's banker. They're creating all the infrastructure on all these continents. I see this with all the travels we do with CPAC. And China is very explicit over the long run. They want to take us out. And the fact that they make almost all of our medicine and almost all the key things that we use to get by in our daily existence needs to be re-examined if we understand that the one making everything is the one who militarily and economically wants to take America out. The final lesson we've learned is Donald Trump doesn't do things because he has to do them, which is what Republican presidents usually do. They don't do anything until they actually are forced to do something. He's doing like 300, 350 things that he doesn't really necessarily need to do in terms of the schedule, but he's doing them because he feels like America is going to lose its edge unless we have some corrections in these areas, including on trade.
Okay. Jamal Bowman, I mean, Kevin O'Leary doesn't think Trump's going nearly hard enough. He launched a searing attack on China's economic war, as he phrased it, against particularly the United States. And he said this.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts.
I mean, yeah, bro. They're like Eddie Guerrero out here in the trade world. They lie, they cheat, and they steal. They lie, they cheat, and steal. All right, guys, but let's make sure we double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's get the likes up, man. Let's get it to 100 likes. So go ahead and double tap that screen and like the video, or hit the 3 dots up there in the corner to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate the support, guys.
They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration
400% tariffs. What would that
I
look
want
like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field.
Jamal, you know, people might say, well, that's outrageous and so on, but he's not a fool, Kevin O'Leary. He's a very successful guy, and he believes that what Trump is doing is not only right, but not aggressive enough, that you've got to take the war to China because they've been waging an economic war for a sustained period of time now, and it will eventually, potentially, put them above the United States.
I mean, for me, the simple question is, how is this trade war, how are these tariffs going to help the American people? And when I say the American people, I mean the working class American people.
Nigga, brother, are you serious? The tariff has already brought in business that these working class people, these middle class citizens can work in these factories, these plants, etc. We're trying to build back coal. We're going to need Americans to work those plants. We brought in trillions of dollars in manufacturing. We're going to need Americans to work those factories. Okay. So what are you talking about? Like I said, you guys don't listen to what's actually going on outside. You just actually want to go ahead and fearmonger, or honestly, go get a little bit, no, I'm not even going to call y'all uneducated. I'm just going to say get a little bit too misinformed about what's going on out here to the point you make these outlandish comments about Trump or tariffs. And the thing is not even about tariffs. It's the effectiveness of the tariffs that you guys are underplaying and that you don't know too much about. It's like, do you guys know that trillions of dollars is coming back to America? Before, I mean, bro, it was like 4 billion before, 4 trillion before the tariffs were enacted. The other trillion that were added on during a couple days. And then let's not forget, we've been making like $2 billion a day just off tariffs.
Is this going to help bring down the cost of childcare, the cost of groceries, the cost of utilities? is this going to help create millions of jobs here in America and create a federal jobs guarantee? That's what Trump is saying. That's what his supporters are saying. But I would love to hear more about what the actual plan is. What is the best case scenario?
Bro, you just said what the plan was and just said, but I want to know what the actual plan is. It's like, right, what? Like, we already told you it's going to be tariffs. If they don't come here, then we'll just find a way to, honestly, we'll just cut these regulations and open up our own resources. That's what we're already starting to do. But hey, it's either we have fair trade with them or we just tariff them out of our economy. That's really the plan. And then if we cut taxes, that's going to make sure that the wages on American workers not only go up, but they don't decrease. There's the plan. Like, it's a pretty good outline. I don't know like how you're missing it. And then how you going to pretty much tell us, oh yeah, this is Trump's plan, but what's the plan? Like, bro.
What is the moderate scenario and what is the worst case scenario? Right now, markets are inconsistent, and that inconsistency is not good for the American economy overall. But quite honestly, where I am in Yonkers, New York, where I represented the Bronx, places like Mount Vernon, working class, historically redline communities, whether the market is up or down, it is bad for working class people. And so Mr. O'Leary, Trump, people like that who already have incredible wealth and resources, they have these conversations in a way.
Okay, let's talk about that. People who have these wealth and incredible resources have been abusing our current trade system by escaping American taxes and not having to pay American workers by going to these other countries and getting paid lower taxes, and the government subsidize their business and they get to pay their workers lower. So you want to talk about these rich, you want to talk about the rich and these corporations. Why aren't you talking about that? Like, they've been acting like this. They've been making these moves. Why are you only talking about Donald Trump, the guy who's trying to stop the rich and these corporations from abusing the middle class? Do you guys not understand that? Like, you guys are missing the whole point that the same rich you guys want to eat, want to tax to death, are the same ones that you kind of are letting off, that you kind of are in support of by saying, oh, drop the tariffs or this is going to ruin the world's standing. How? How is that going to ruin our position in the world when we're the top consumer in the world? And that can't change. It can't change. I'm sorry. We're already top dog in consuming. It cannot change. That's why all these countries are coming to us trying to make a deal.
That's disconnected from the American people. You know what you do to beat China? You invest in your own country and in your own communities. And the communities and where I've represented have been neglected by both our U.S. government and the private sector. The private sector has been more focused on enriching itself than it has the American people. And my worry is this going to lead to the further concentration of power and wealth for the 0.1% wherever it lands, while the majority of the American people continue to struggle?
If you guys do not know the common knowledge that we are $1 trillion in debt in the trade surplus for a reason. So since we are $1 trillion in a trade surplus, and somebody said the UK, which is pretty stupid, is only 300 billion in a trade surplus, what does that say? Doesn't that say that we buy into the world's economy probably like 2-3 times more than the UK does? It's obvious math. So what are y'all saying? Like I said, you guys don't even have correct information, and you guys aren't even aware of what's going on outside of your bubble. I mean, like I said, these countries are already coming to us making deals. It already worked. That's why I'm wondering what this man is talking about. And that's why everybody's kind of looking at him weird, like, bro, or have you been outside? Like, the plan is already working. Like, sorry to say it, but Trump he know what he's doing. He know what he's doing, apparently.
That's my worry. That's my concern. And I have not heard anything from the Trump administration. I see no leadership from Congress on either side of the aisle as it relates to our economic power and strength and health and well-being going forward.
Okay, Lindy Lee, one of the interesting things I think about all this is the way that Trump's own top team are at loggerheads with each other very publicly. And I'm talking particularly about Elon Musk and Peter Navarro. So you've got Musk, who seemed to be Trump's right-hand guy on all things economic and Doge and so on. And you've got Navarro, who's one of his top trade advisors. And they're openly abusing each other and attacking each other. And it's clear that they have a fundamental disagreement over whether tariffs could work. You know, Elon Musk looks at this as a business guy running huge businesses, which are currently taking a hell of a beating. Very difficult to make Tesla cars at affordable prices, given how many parts they source from outside America, if the tariffs make it prohibitive to do so. So he has, you know, on the one hand, he's trying to cut waste. On the other hand, he's trying to save his own businesses. Navarro, completely different. You know, he's all in with all this. I can't remember a time where you've seen senior people in an administration so early into a presidency publicly having this kind of slanging match. I mean, I got to say, I find it quite healthy. You know, I don't really like the concept of collective responsibility where everyone pretends they all agree with each other. But what we're seeing are the kind of inner conversations all playing out in public, a bit like we saw with Trump and J.D. Vance and President Zelensky. You know, it is very transparent, but what do you think of it? Is this healthy or not?
Pierce, I love it. Frankly, this puts the lie to the fact, you know, what Democrats are saying, that Trump is a king. You think a king would allow dissension within the ranks? I don't think so. So I'm actually really happy to see this spilling out into the public. And I think retardo, which is the phrase that Elon used, is actually pretty clever. And I want to say, last time, Pierce, you questioned my loyalty. I want to say one thing, though. I lost like 25% of my net worth in the last couple of weeks because I am so heavy on the NASDAQ and tech stocks, yet I am willing to give Trump a chance. It's only been 4.5 trading days, so I'm willing to see how this is going to play out. And frankly, as Caroline Levitt just said a few hours ago, Trump has a spine of steel. I'm sorry. So let's just see who's going to blink first. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to China and the United States. It's really about these two countries. He's slapping tariffs everywhere to make sure that China has nowhere to go, to make sure that they can't have any loopholes. But we'll just see what happens because obviously the status quo isn't working. We're seeing so many cities around the country being completely decimated. And maybe this will lead companies to reshore, perhaps, and reindustrialize. Perhaps this is, in fact, the medicine that we need. But again, we also have to mention that we have increasingly financialized our economy, and Wall Street doesn't necessarily reflect Main Street. And most Trump supporters, a lot of them don't own stocks, so they're not feeling the pain. But I am really glad that you mentioned that Elon is dissenting. Bill Ackman, for instance.
I mean, most people in general don't own stocks. I think what they say, like the top 10% own 90% of the stocks. So that says a lot.
Is also speaking up. This is a good sign. It's a sign of a healthy democracy. So all the Democrats out there marching and saying, you know, during a hands-off protest saying that Trump is a monarch, a king, that's absolutely not true. Because I was born in an authoritarian regime, and you better believe that no one is allowed at the danger of death to speak out against Xi Jinping.
Okay, well, look, stay with me, panel, because I'm going to have a quick chat now with somebody very directly concerned with the tariffs. That's the owner of Marlin Steel Wire in Baltimore, Drew Greenblatt. Drew, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Look, there's a lot of business people freaking out about what's going on here because they're seeing a massive assault on their profits, potentially, massive assault on the stock price of their companies and so on. Where do you sit with this? Making America healthy again is all the rage, and many people are inspired to put their fitness first again with promo code PEERS.
Future being created right now.
PEERS. No more excuses.
You have to stay the course. Now is a wonderful opportunity to invest in America. Now is going to be a glorious future being created right now for the American worker. We're going to give tremendous paths to get from being impoverished into the middle class. These are opportunities that we didn't have for decades. All of a sudden, we're going to be leveling the playing field. This was not an opportunity a couple days ago. Right now, we have all kinds of disconnects where we make baskets in Baltimore, Maryland using American steel, and we try to export it to Germany, and the German government charges $129.25 for tariffs. But if a German competitor ships the same exact basket back to America, the customs duty by the Americans is $1.25.
Why?
This is so unfair to the American worker. We're leveling the playing field. We're making it fair. This is the time. We have to understand that, yeah, t-shirts are going to cost a couple more bucks from Vietnam. I'm all right with that. What's more important is that $80,000, $90,000 jobs, $100,000.
And if Vietnam don't act right, then, well, them t-shirt companies are going to come here because we won't allow them to sell into our market. I mean, the shirts are going to be too high. And let's be real, if we got some American manufacturers that's willing to make shirts, well, there you go. I mean, this honestly gives new economic opportunities to American citizens, like new entrepreneurship. Hey, if you want to go out there and design a shirt, I'll do it right now. I'd try to be a shirt manufacturer right now if I were you.
$1,000 jobs with health insurance and 401k matches are very commonplace all throughout America because there's so many new job opportunities.
What if it doesn't work, Drew? I mean, I might. Right. I mean, look, I admire your optimism, and you talked through a very good example there in your world in relation to what happens with Germany on tariffs, and that does, on the face of it, obviously appear completely unfair to the United States and the United States workers. But there are other areas where America has the edge over other countries, is what the argument goes. And to take a sledgehammer.
Now, Matt, I'm hearing your argument, and you don't know the global market. That's all I pretty much have to say to you, and this is going to destroy your whole argument. You do not understand that the whole global market hinges on American consumerism. If that was not the case, then these countries would go somewhere else. You're right, they would invest somewhere else, but they can't because nobody's willing to buy into their economy like America. So you want to say that, oh, the U.S. Treasury is at risk? I mean, no, it's not. U.S. bonds have been looking up. Like I said, bro, are you looking anywhere for this information? Because you're kind of just talking misinformed. Because if I show you our bonds right now, they look pretty good. Show you the Treasury right now, it's going to look pretty good. So here's the problem that you don't understand. America's global power on the global economy. You do not understand that part. Like, and I need all of y'all to understand that part, that if you look up these trade deficits, you understand that, yeah, we buy into these countries way more than they buy into us. Like, how much times do I need to bring it up? Here it is right here. Country U.S. trade deficit in 2024. It's like, if we go down the line, bro, this turns into trillions of dollars that we put out into the world, but they don't give back. So come on now, guys. You can't sit here and act like we don't have an economic hold on the world when you guys let us buy everything from you guys. And now that we want to pull back, you guys, that the whole world's in panic. Of course, there was an economic downturn because these companies had to act right now. It's like, oh, yeah, our prices are going up. That means sales are going to go down because what? Oh, yeah, we're getting hit with tariffs because there's no way to scapegoat the American economy. There's no way to just buy in or sell into there without no consequence or without no tariff. Like these other countries put on us. So you want to talk about, oh, everybody's unsure about American stock. No, they're very sure. They know we still got money. We still can do this. We've been doing it for them for the past, 20 years. So there is no uncertainty in Americans' economy or our dollar at that. When it comes to these countries, I mean, you're talking about countries who have a weaker dollar than us. So what's your point here? You're talking about countries that have been depending on us for years. You don't understand the global economy. And that is why I didn't want to debate you and be honest with you.
On tariffs in the way that Donald Trump is doing, many people think is overly reckless. And we're seeing the effect on the markets. Now, the markets can behave like lemmings on the top of a cliff. You know, they can run either way. And I'm fully aware of that. And I own stocks and I see what happens up and down all the time on just a whim or a...
No, P.O., you don't understand that even when Nancy Pelosi was explaining trade deficits, she explained how these trade deficits are gotten in. The fact that they only accept 2% of our export. Now, I'm not just talking all countries, but most countries accept a small percentage of our exports. And then they tariff it at a high percentage. That's going to create a trade deficit, especially if we don't put no tariffs on theirs and we accept most of their products. You're not understanding how these trade deficits are created. That's where you're missing your information from.
a tweet or whatever it may be.
All right, there you go.
But
You
what if
both been
this
cooked now.
overall policy, which I think most people kind of agree with Trump, that too much stuff has been outsourced outside of America, manufacturing.
Largest consumer economy will have trade deficits, bro. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, you guys are not understanding the point here. You understand that the point is not the trade deficit, is how we get to these trade deficits. If the trading is fair, where they accept our imports and we accept their imports, they drop their tariff, we drop our tariffs, and there's still a trade deficit, okay, cool. That's just how it is. But that is not how we're reaching these trade deficits. We're not reaching the trade deficit with these countries through fair trade deals, through even trade deals. That's not how we're getting there. So if you guys cannot understand how these trade deals are gotten to, because this is a 1 + 1 = 2 situation, but you guys are just focusing on, well, I guess this 2. Do you understand the variables of how trade deals are worked out? Do you understand what the formula is?
Has been allowed to sort of grind not to a halt.
And here's the thing, like, hold on. Here's the thing. Are you sure the largest economy will have trade deficits? I mean, not with 90% of the world, though. Like, don't you think that's a bit ridiculous? 95% of the world we have a trade deficit with? That don't make no sense. So you can't just say, oh, it's because we just have the largest consumer market, we should just be in trade deficits with everybody. That it don't make sense. Like, you cannot logically make that make sense and say that, oh, well, it's because they're all playing fair. And obviously the reason why we got trade deficit is through unfair trade tactics. So you guys are missing the point.
But certainly to a much bigger halt than it used to be in America. And if you want to stand up for American workers, well, now's the time to do it, particularly with automated AI coming with robots and so on. This is the time to stand up for human workers. I get all that. But what if the scale of what Trump is doing leads to a genuine economic recession, if not depression, around the world? Because if that happens, then none of the good stuff you're talking about will happen. In fact, the opposite will happen. People will have their savings destroyed and their lives destroyed.
50% of Americans don't own one stock. Millions, tens of millions of Americans don't have a $250 in their checking account for an emergency war chest fund. Okay. We have to create paths and avenues for these people to get into the middle class, to be able to buy a car, buy a home, get into the American dream. I reject that we're going into an economic tailspin. It's the opposite. It's going to be very good for us. We're going to get all kinds of trade deals. We hold all the cards. We're the richest country in the world. We have a fabulous economy. Everybody wants to sell to our consumers. It's an
P-lip. See, and this is why there's no debating you guys. Because trust me, everybody understands what I'm talking about, but you guys. And the reason you don't understand is because you don't want to. I just pretty much explained trade deficits in that I'm not mad about the trade deficits. I'm mad about how these trade deficits are being created. Even Nancy Pelosi pretty much said that, yeah, these trade deficits are being created through unfair trade policies or tactics. And y'all don't understand that. And then y'all want to come with the argument, well, not everybody can afford American products. Bro, nobody said that. So that's what I'm saying. You guys are trying to like low-key run off on an argument that you can win. And even that you can't win. Because like, oh, well, they can always just go somewhere else. Where? They can't. They already, I mean, China and Canada already proved that. UK already proved that. So I'm really wondering, bro, what's your gripe with me when you can't even prove me wrong? I mean, none of y'all can. None of y'all can honestly prove me wrong on this because you don't know the global economy. You don't know enough about America's importance in the global economy. But I mean, you guys will sit here and try to tell somebody that you don't know what they're talking about, but can't substantiate your own arguments.
An extraordinary opportunity for us to negotiate and get fair deals for the American worker. It's a unique proposition right now. These countries, I think it's 50, 70 countries, I've lost track, that are offering 0% tariffs with America. We're talking about Taiwan. We're talking about Cambodia. We're talking about Vietnam. These guys are lining up to cut deals with America. It's fabulous. It's going to give us an opportunity to recreate a strong, thriving middle class. By the way, the Chinese just totally shut down shipping masks to America during COVID. They shut down shipping IV poles to America during COVID. They are not our friends. Okay. We have to build our own manufacturing infrastructure so that we're self-reliant. We're capable of making what we need to make, pharmaceuticals, etc., so that nobody could push us around as a nation. We have a huge economy. We hold all the cards. It's time for a reset so that we're fair to our impoverished neighbors. Give them an opportunity to thrive in this economy and prosper. Not just the 1%, not just the 10%. Let's give everybody a shot.
Drew, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate that. Let's go back to the panel. I mean, Chuck, here's my kind of overview again about this, which is the establishment way of doing things in terms of the economy has led to America being $37 trillion in debt. As some, I can't even imagine how big that is. I can't even write it down. I wouldn't know how many noughts you need. You know, Elon Musk has warned for a long time that America's heading potentially to bankruptcy if this carries on. So something has to give. And again, I come back to the overriding view I have of what Trump's trying to achieve. And I think you kind of agree with that. The top line goal is probably correct. It's how they're doing it. But there you've got a top American business guy who couldn't sound more enthusiastic about this and who sees the big picture as being the promised land.
Look, again, I get the.
Now, here we go. Once again, you guys trying to run off on, Vietnam. So, okay, great. You want to play that game? Let's play this game, Ham. Let's play the game. So, can China afford our products? Do China make it? Yeah, they can actually. Can Mexico? Yeah, they can. Now, you want to ask if Vietnam can? Well, guess what? I mean, do we not have produces? Do we not sell food as well? It's like you're acting like all we do is produce what? Expensive items or expensive products. I mean, there's food, there's apples that we also transport as well. Like, come on now. They can definitely afford that. I mean, can Ireland also afford things? Yes, they can. Can Germany? Yes, they can. Taiwan? Oh, yes, they can. All these countries can afford to buy American products. Maybe Thailand? Yeah, they can. India? Yeah. So most of these countries can afford to buy American products. So when you try to run off on Vietnam as if it's a point, it's not a good one. I'll tell you that right now. You want to talk about, you're acting like, oh, our whole economy hinges on if we can sell to Vietnam. Is like, you hear yourselves. When y'all write this stuff, you honestly hear what you're trying to say or hear what you're actually saying. But all right, average wages in Vietnam is $360 a month. They aren't buying our goods because they can't afford it. Pull up the formula Trump used to determine the tariffs. Like I said, has nothing to do with the argument. And what Vietnamese makes have nothing to do with us being able to sell into other markets. I mean, is the Vietnamese the only market that we can sell into? Then why are you only bringing up the Vietnamese? Why don't you bring up all the other countries that I named that we can also sell into?